Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Initiation consists in this very act of learning to know the things of the universe by those names which they bear in the spirit of their divine author. The mystery of things lies in these names. Please continue watching for the spiritual insights of Dr. Rudolf Steiner, vegetarian. If you visit musical Austria, your memorable experience there would be accompanied with the cheerful Grüß Gott, which means hello in German. Admirable viewers, I am Mia. The bright Austrian people send you warm greetings and appreciation for your nobility in action. May you be in divine bliss always. Welcome to Initiation into the Higher Mysteries, from the Way of Initiation by Dr. Rudolf Steiner, vegetarian, on Words of Wisdom. Born in 1861, Dr. Rudolf Steiner was a great Austrian polymath, philosopher, and scientist who made influential contributions in the fields of education, science, spirituality, and medicine. He is perhaps best known for pioneering the holistic educational methods for the Waldorf schools. An eloquent public speaker and gifted writer, he gave over 6,000 lectures in his lifetime and also gained recognition as a literary critic. His writings cover a wide range of subjects, and he published more than 25 books, including Mysticism at the Dawn of the Modern Age, The Way of Initiation, and Intuitive Thinking as a Spiritual Path, The Philosophy of Freedom. He developed and taught an esoteric spiritual philosophy called anthroposophy, based on the science of the spirit. Today, we will read a selection from the chapters Enlightenment and Initiation from Rudolf Steiner's book, The Way of Initiation. The philosopher reveals how an initiation candidate can prepare themselves with the qualities needed if they are to be initiated into the higher mysteries. Enlightenment. The quality which is indispensable to him who would be initiated is a certain measure of courage and fearlessness. He must absolutely go out of his way to find opportunities for developing these virtues. In the occult schools, they are cultivated quite systematically, but life in this respect is itself an excellent school of occultism, nay, possibly the best. To face danger calmly, to try to overcome difficulties unswervingly, this is what the student must learn to do. For instance, in the presence of some peril, he must rise at once to the conception that fears are altogether useless and ought not to be entertained for one moment, but that the mind ought simply to be concentrated on what is to be done. He must reach a point where it has become impossible for him ever again to feel afraid or to lose his courage. By self-discipline in this direction, he will develop within himself distinct qualities which he needs if he is to be initiated into the higher mysteries. Just as man in his physical being requires nervous force in order to use his physical senses, so also in his psychic nature he requires the force which is only produced in the courageous and the fearless. For in penetrating to the higher mysteries, he will see things not yet revealed to the physical eyesight, nor to any other of the human senses. The latter by hiding from our gaze, the higher verities, things which we could not bear to behold, are in reality our benefactors, since they prevent us from perceiving that which, if realized without due preparation, would throw us into unutterable consternation. The disciple must be prepared to endure this sight, although he has lost certain supports in the outer world by a realization of the very illusions that encompassed him. It is truly and literally as if his attention were suddenly drawn to a certain danger, by which for some time he had been unconsciously threatened. He was not afraid hitherto, but now that he sees his peril, he is overcome by terror, even though the danger has not been rendered any greater by his knowledge thereof. The forces at work in the world are both destructive and creative. The destiny of manifested beings is birth and death. The initiate is to behold this march of destiny. The veil, which in the ordinary course of life clouds the spiritual eyes, is to be uplifted, and the man is to see himself as one interwoven with these forces, with this destiny. His own nature contains destructive and creative powers. As undisguisedly as the other objects of his vision are revealed to the eye of the seer, his own soul is bared to his gaze. In the face of this self-knowledge, the disciple must not suffer himself to droop, and in this he will succeed only if he has brought with him an excess of the necessary strength. In order that this may be the case, he must learn to maintain inner calm and confidence in the most difficult circumstances. He must nourish within himself a firm faith in the beneficent forces of existence. He must be prepared to find that many motives which have actuated him hitherto will actuate him no longer. He must needs perceive that he has hitherto often thought or acted in a certain manner, because he was still in the toils of ignorance. Reasons which formerly influenced him will now disappear. He has done many things out of personal vanity. He will now perceive how utterly futile all such vanity is in the eyes of the initiate. He has done much from motives of avarice. He will now be aware of the destructive effect of all avariciousness. He will have to develop entirely new springs for his thought and action, and it is for this that courage and fearlessness are required. It is especially a matter of cultivating this courage and this fearlessness in the inmost depths of the mental life. The disciple must learn never to despair. He must always be equal to the thought, I will forget that I have again failed in this matter. I will try once more, as though nothing at all had happened. Thus, he will fight his way on to the firm conviction that the universe contains inexhaustible fountains of strength from which he may drink. He must aspire again and again to the divine, which will uplift and support him, however feeble and impotent the mortal part of his being may prove. He must be capable of pressing on towards the future, undismayed by any experiences of the past. Every teacher of occultism will carefully ascertain how far the disciple, aspiring to initiation into the higher mysteries, has advanced on the road of spiritual preparation. If he fulfills these conditions to a certain degree, he is then worthy to hear uttered those names of things which form the key that unlocks the higher knowledge. For initiation consists in this very act of learning to know the things of the universe by those names which they bear in the spirit of their divine author. And the mystery of things lies in these names. Therefore, it is that the initiate speaks another language than that of the uninitiate, for he knows the names by which things were called into existence. Initiation. The highest degree in occultism of which it is possible to speak in a book for general readers is initiation. One cannot give public information concerning all that lies beyond, though the way to it can always be found by one who has previously pressed forward and penetrated the lower secrets and mysteries. The knowledge and power which are conferred upon a man through initiation could not be obtained in any other manner except in some far distant future, after many incarnations, on quite another road and in quite another form. He who is initiated today experiences something which he would otherwise have to experience at a much later period and under quite different circumstances. It is right that a person should learn only so much of the secrets of nature as corresponds to his own degree of development, and for this reason alone do obstacles bar his way to complete knowledge and power. If a person without the necessary preparation were initiated today, he would still lack those experiences which, in the normal course of his development, would come to him in the future during other incarnations, and would then bring with them the corresponding secrets. At the door of initiation, these experiences must therefore be supplied in some other way, and in their place the candidate has to undergo the preliminary teaching. These are so-called trials which have to be passed. These trials are now being discussed in various books and magazines, but owing to the very nature of such discussion, it is not surprising that quite false impressions are received concerning them. For those who have not already gone through the periods of probation and enlightenment know nothing of these trials and consequently cannot appropriately describe them. Certain matters or subjects connected with the higher worlds are produced before the candidate, but he is able to see and hear these only when he can perceive clearly the figures, tones, and colors for which he has been prepared by the teachings on probation and enlightenment. Let us now continue with the selection from the chapter Initiation from Rudolf Steiner's book The Way of Initiation. Here the author explains how through trials the initiation candidate will gain more clarity on his way to comprehending the higher knowledge. Initiation. The first trial consists in obtaining a clearer comprehension of the corporeal attributes of what seems to be lifeless things than of plants, of animals, of human beings, in the way that the average person possesses them. This does not mean what is commonly called scientific knowledge. With that it has no connection, but it has to do with intuition. What usually occurs is that the initiate discloses to the candidate how the objects of nature and the essence of living things reveal themselves to the spiritual and mental hearing and sight. In a certain way, these things then lie revealed, naked, before the beholder. Attributes and qualities which are concealed from physical eyes and ears can then be seen and heard. Heretofore, they have been unwrapped as in a veil, and the falling away of this veil for the candidate occurs at what is called the process of purification by fire. The first trial is therefore known as the fire trial, which will briefly be explained thus. For some people, the everyday ordinary life is a more or less unconscious process of initiation by means of the fire trial. These persons are those who have passed through a wealth of developing experiences and who find that their self-confidence, courage, and fortitude have been greatly augmented in a normal way, who have learned to bear sorrow and disappointment from the failure of their undertakings with greatness of mind and especially with quiet and unbroken strength. Those who have gone through such experiences are often initiates without knowing it, and it needs but little to open for them the spiritual hearing and sight, to make them clairvoyant. For it must be noted that a genuine fire trial is not merely intended to satisfy the curiosity of the candidate. He would learn undoubtedly many unusual things, of which others devoid of such experiences can have no idea. But yet, this knowledge is not the end nor aim, but merely the path to the end. The real aim and object is this, that the candidate shall acquire for himself, through this knowledge of the higher worlds, a greater and truer self-confidence, a higher and nobler courage, and a perseverance and attitude of mind altogether different from what he could have obtained in the lower world. After the fire trial, a candidate may turn from the school, but because he has gone thus far, he will accomplish his ordinary life work, greatly strengthened in all his spiritual and physical relations, and in his next incarnation, he will continue to seek further initiation and advancement. In his present life, at all events, he will prove himself a more useful member of society, will be of greater service to humanity than he was before, and in whatever position he may find himself, his firmness, prudence, and favorable influence over his fellows will have greatly increased. After coming out of the fire trial, if he should wish to continue in the occult school, he then has to be instructed in a certain writing system, which is used by those in the school. Occult teachings are written in this occult writing system because what is really occult can neither be perfectly spoken of in words of our ordinary speech, nor set forth in the ordinary ways of writing. Those who have learned much from the initiates can but partially translate the teachings of occultism into terms of ordinary speech. The symbols or signs of the secret script are not arbitrarily invented or imagined, but correspond to powers which are active and efficacious in nature. It is through these symbols or signs that one learns the language of such matters. The candidate immediately sees for himself that these symbols correspond to the figures, tones, and colors which he has learned to perceive during the periods of probation and enlightenment. He now understands that all which went before was like learning how to spell, and that only now does he begin to read in the higher worlds. All that appeared to him before, as separate figures, tones, and colors, is now revealed to him as a perfect unity, a coherent harmony, and here, for the first time, he attains a real certainty in observing and following the higher knowledge. Hitherto, it was not possible for him to be sure that what he saw had been clearly or correctly perceived. Now at last it is possible that a correct understanding between the candidate and the initiate begin to arise concerning the spheres of the higher worlds. For no matter how close the connection between the two may be, no matter what form their interchanges may take in ordinary life, the initiate can only communicate to the candidate on these planes in the direct form or figures of the secret alphabet. Through this occult speech, the student also learns certain rules of conduct for life, certain duties and obligations of which previously he knew nothing whatever. When he learns to know these rules, he is able to perform actions which have a significance and a meaning, such as the actions of another who is not initiated can never possess. The only point of view from which he is now able to look upon things, the only plane from which he can now make manifest his deeds, is that of the higher worlds, and the instructions concerning such deeds can only be read or understood in the secret script. Yet it must be clearly understood and emphasized that there are persons who unconsciously have the ability or faculty of performing these actions, notwithstanding they have never been in an occult school. Such helpers of humanity and the world proceed blessedly and beneficently through life. There are certain fundamental reasons, which cannot be here discussed, why they are in possession of seemingly supernatural gifts. The only difference between these persons and the pupils of an occult school is that the former act unconsciously, while the latter work with the full knowledge, insight, judgment, and understanding of the entire matter in hand. Often the candidate has to win by training that which has been bestowed by a higher power upon his fellow for the good of humanity. One should freely and openly honor these favored ones of God, but he should not, on their account, consider the work of the occult schools unnecessary or superfluous. Intelligent viewers, we appreciate your company for today's Words of Wisdom. Coming up next is Celebrating Korea Peace and World Peace, right after noteworthy news. Please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television for more constructive programming. May optimism brighten your days, giving you courage and faith in your limitless inner power, in heaven's splendor.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/WOW.